Tonight, we'll delve into some of the most chilling horror stories sent to us by Bimbo workers. These aren't the stories you'll ever hear in any of the company's commercials. They come from employees, whether working in the factories or on delivery routes, who experienced paranormal events that marked them forever. So get comfortable, settle in, and if you're working tonight, let me join you for this new episode of Lost Files. I work as a driver at Bimbo. Officially, our shifts start at 7 a.m., but I don't always follow the schedule. For quite some time now, I've been leaving at 4 a.m. before dawn to start my deliveries early. Some of the roads I travel are long, isolated, and eerily quiet at that hour. One morning, I left as usual and headed to the first branch on my delivery list. Traffic was almost non-existent, which made the quiet feel heavier, almost oppressive. On that stretch, a dense line of trees runs along the left side of the road. As I drove slowly, observing the swaying branches, something unusual caught my eye above the fourth tree. At first, I thought it was a large animal, perhaps a deer disturbing the branches. But as I got closer, the shape clarified. My heart skipped a beat. There, perched high in the tree, were several women sitting on the branches, dressed in black and white, all staring toward the road. I felt an icy chill run down my spine, a primal fear that made my hands tighten on the steering wheel. I kept driving, hoping they would ignore me. Thankfully, they did. I would like to think they were friends playing some strange game. But logic couldn't account for what I had just seen. My father had worked at Bimbo and retired after years of service. He had been stationed at multiple locations, including the Pacific branch, which I had visited several times. Not all of my memories of the factory are pleasant, despite the excitement I felt on those visits. One particular experience has haunted me ever since. It happened on a day when other families had come to the factory. Children ran and laughed in every corner. In the midst of all this, I noticed a girl my age sitting alone in a corner. She seemed oddly detached from the chaos around her. Feeling awkward for her, I approached her to ask if she wanted to play. At first glance, she looked strange. Her clothes were dirty, her face smudged, and there was an unsettling emptiness in her eyes. Without hesitation, she suggested we play hide and seek. I began counting, and when I set out to find her, her laughter guided me effortlessly to the girls' restroom. I opened the door expecting to see her, but she was gone. Then I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was her. 1, 2, 3. For all my friends. "Now it's your turn," she shouted before running away. Instead of feeling fear, I laughed, thinking it was an elaborate prank. Later, when it was my turn to hide, I ran. The first place I saw was the manager's office, and without thinking, I went in. Inside were the assistant manager and my father. They told me we would be leaving soon. I tried to explain I was just saying goodbye to a new friend. I stepped out to find her, but she was nowhere. I asked my father to help. We searched the daycare, the hallways, everywhere. She had vanished. We even asked one of the guards if he had seen a girl. He said all families had left 30 minutes earlier. I protested, explaining we had only just finished playing. He asked me to describe her. And when I began, he interrupted, describing her in exact detail. I confirmed it was indeed the same girl. The guard told us she appeared at night, wandering the factory at dawn in certain areas. That day I went home terrified, realizing I had been playing with a ghost. Since then, my father's co-workers often asked about the incident. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who had seen or interacted with her. Some even requested a mass be held, though the bosses dismissed the claims entirely. Whether the girl still appears today, I cannot say, since my father no longer works there. But that encounter left a mark on me that I carry to this day. After that childhood encounter, I never forgot the feeling of seeing something that shouldn't exist. Years later, I began working at Bimbo in Chalco, assigned to safeguard staff and ensure the safety of the factory for an entire year. Initially, nothing unusual happened, but a month into my work, the strange events began. One night, my watch struck midnight as I walked through the areas I had been assigned. Surprisingly, the areas weren't dark or lonely. In fact, many employees were still working late. Yet, as I passed a large warehouse, something stopped me cold. There, walking slowly down a long hallway, was a man in uniform, his clothes soaked in blood, his arms brutally injured, bits of flesh hanging from them. He moved deliberately, but there was a rhythm to his steps that was almost otherworldly. I immediately grabbed the radio to alert my colleagues. "There's been an accident," I reported, trying to keep my voice steady. I followed him down the hallway, shouting to ask if he was okay. But he ignored me and turned sharply down another corridor. I ran after him, fear mixing with confusion. When I reached a section where another worker was arranging products, the bloodied man had vanished. "Hey, dude, which man?" the young worker asked, staring at me blankly. I tried explaining, but he swore he hadn't seen anyone. My co-workers listening on the radio didn't hear me report anything. Shock rooted me to the spot. For the rest of the shift, I remained silent, unwilling to sound insane. When my shift ended, I asked to review the cameras, hoping to prove I hadn't imagined it. I replayed the footage, and all I saw was myself running. No man, no blood, nothing but my own panic-stricken figure. I never returned to that hallway alone. I chose to remain completely anonymous, even though I no longer worked there. Some of my relatives still did, and I wanted to protect them. I had spent 14 years at Grupo Bimbo, working in different areas. Though I wasn't always a model employee, I'll admit it was one of the best jobs I ever had. Wages were excellent, and payments were always on time. Yet during those 14 years, paranormal events seemed to follow me, slowly building a pattern that I could no longer ignore. My first brush with something inexplicable at work occurred while repairing the bread machines. One day I had to fix the slicer. Even though the blades had recently been changed, the loaves were getting stuck. Entering the slicing area, I immediately felt a cold, somber energy that settled over the machines like a heavy fog. Luckily, the maintenance lady arrived and started chatting. At first, it was the usual. Work topics, a little about family, the kids. But I didn't engage for long, because I soon discovered the problem. A piece of plastic in the middle of the machinery. Normally, this plastic was used to seal the bread. But this piece lacked the usual covering. It was just a raw piece of metal. Stranger still, no human could have placed it there. The production process was sterile and highly automated. When I pointed it out, the maintenance lady admitted she had put it there. Until that moment, I hadn't looked up and noticed her fully. I had been kneeling, and all I could see were her black shoes, knee-high, resting silently on the floor. When she spoke, I finally looked up and froze. Standing before me was a woman, disheveled in uniform, her mouth unnaturally wide, flashing a terrifying smile. Most of her teeth were gone, and the few remaining were sharp. Drops of red like tears of blood trickled from her eyes. I could only stare for a few seconds before my boss entered. "Who are you talking to?" he asked. I turned and she was gone. My boss insisted there was no one on the floor. Everyone had left. At first I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking, but he wasn't. Later, the security guard confirmed it. The floor had been completely empty. Yet I had seen her, felt her presence, and would never forget that horrifying smile. The same guard later told me of other paranormal experiences. He had worked at a slaughterhouse and a funeral home before Bimbo, but claimed nothing compared to what he'd seen at the factory. He even told me about the Bimbo bear, the mascot from commercials and rappers. According to him, it sometimes moved on its own outside the plant. I didn't believe him at first. It sounded absurd, like something out of a children's movie. Months later, I was working late again, installing a new machine with a co-worker. We were in the dining room, waiting for another colleague, when we heard a dragging sound. The guard, terrified yet composed, whispered, "It's the bear outside. Do you want to see it?" Curiosity won over caution. We approached, laughing nervously. But as we got closer, I felt a strange heaviness in the air. The energy surrounding the bear was suffocating, almost alive. I laughed at the absurdity. But the moment the guard turned away, the bear blinked. My blood ran cold. Impossible. This shouldn't be happening. I bolted toward the guardhouse, and the guard caught up. His expression a mix of triumph and fear. Now I knew he was telling the truth. Even if I never saw the bear walking the factory floor as others claimed, I understood that something deeply unnatural inhabited it. That night marked another turning point. I realized the factory wasn't just a workplace. It was a collection point for energies, shadows, and things that defied explanation. As my years at the factory continued, the strange and terrifying experiences only intensified. One story in particular stands out: the death of a security guard, an event that would haunt me long after I left Bimbo. It was very late at night when a new machine arrived, needing installation. I waited for a co-worker to arrive so we could set it up properly. The dining room was quiet, except for the low hum of machines in the distance. Suddenly, a dragging sound echoed through the empty halls. The guard I was with, who had always seemed fearless, froze. His voice trembled as he whispered, "It's the bear outside. Do you want to see it?" Curiosity overcame my fear. We approached the figure outside, laughter masking our anxiety. But as we neared, I felt it, a heavy, oppressive energy emanating from the bear, as if something unnatural dwelled within it. I laughed nervously, watching the guard shout at the figure, but in the instant he turned his back, the bear blinked. My heart leapt into my throat. Impossible. Yet there it was, alive in a way no ordinary mascot could ever be. I sprinted toward the guardhouse, my stomach twisting with terror. A few months later, the factory was the scene of an incident that would be whispered about for years. News circulated of a security guard discovered dead in the flower bins. I didn't know him personally, nor did I work at the plant where it happened, but the story troubled me. It wasn't the first time accidents, or strange occurrences, had taken a life at Bimbo. The night was unusual. The wind howled violently. The dogs outside barked in unison, as if anticipating something dreadful. It was around 2 a.m. when the power cut out, halting production. Most workers left to eat, leaving only the night crew. One guard came in to check that no one had stayed behind. Suddenly the lights flickered back on, and the cookie machine roared to life. But there was no flour in the kneading machine, only the guard. His death was never officially explained. Some whispered he had suffered cardiac arrest. Others thought he had slipped and fallen. But the story told by his colleague, who monitored the surveillance cameras, suggested something far more sinister. The colleague recounted how the guard checked each area methodically, reporting over the radio what he observed. Suddenly he entered a blind spot. For several tense minutes the cameras showed nothing. Then, when he reappeared, he was running frantically, as if pursued by some unseen force. His expression was pure terror. His jacket was ripped off as though someone or something had seized it from him. The cameraman, witnessing this from the control room, rushed to find him. As he called the guard on the phone, only screams answered. It was assumed that this was the moment of his death. Just as the power returned, and the kneading machine started again. Reviewing the cameras confirmed that the guard had entered alone, seemingly hiding from something invisible, something that defied logic or explanation. Some say he may have suffered a sudden episode of schizophrenia or a heart attack triggered by extreme stress. Others believe a paranormal entity caused it. The truth may never be known. What is undeniable, however, is that something deeply unnatural lingered in that factory, something that defied reason and comprehension. Over the years, I've come to realize that Bimbo Sedis in Chalco is not merely a workplace. It is a space where the veil between the natural and the supernatural seems thin. From ghostly children playing hide and seek, to bloodied apparitions, to inanimate mascots harboring dark energies, and finally to the mysterious white figure that may have claimed the life of a guard, the evidence of the unexplained is overwhelming. I share this story not to frighten lightly, but to record the truth as I experienced it. Even after leaving Bimbo, these memories remain vivid, a constant reminder that some places carry an invisible weight, a history and a presence that ordinary logic cannot dismiss. And so the shadows of the factory persist. The children, the bears, the spectral figures, they continue to haunt the hallways and machines. For those who enter the factory after dark, be wary. Not everything you see will be alive, and not everything that moves will obey the laws of this world. Something is definitely going on in that place, something far beyond the ordinary.